You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com.
Greetings, Earthlings. You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Mothership Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Mothership Network Hall of Fame Special Edition. And we've had a lot of great interviews here on the Pro Wrestling Mothership leading up to the big show coming up next weekend in Waterloo, July 26th, 27th, and the 28th at the Dan Gable Wrestling Museum and the 5 Sullivan Brothers Convention Center. And tonight we are being joined by a very special guest, the world-renowned artist. You've seen his paintings everywhere. They're on T-shirts now. I don't know how many times we see him weekly during a show on whether it be Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. But we're here with the one and the only Rob Schamberger. Rob, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, absolutely. You know, we talked to you a few years back when you were at the Hall of Fame show. I know you weren't able to make it last year, but it's exciting to get you back here in Waterloo this coming year.
Yeah, I'm really excited to make my dramatic return.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're excited to have you. I believe the last time you were there in Waterloo was when you did the big mural that's actually still, kind of front and center as you walk into the Wrestling Museum, if I'm not mistaken.
I was there the year after as well. Last year is the only one I've missed.
Now, before, kind of as we get going here, kind of talk a little bit about your, background with as far as art and wrestling goes. Have you always been a wrestling fan growing up?
No. Grew up in a single mother household with one TV, and Murder, She Wrote must have been on at the same time that wrestling was, so I didn't get to watch it. And it was when my mom remarried, and I was, 18, I think, and my stepfather had been a fan back in the 60s and 70s, like going to Memorial Hall here in Kansas City and watching Bob Seigel and Harley Race and Bulldog Bob Brown and those guys. And anyway, he was flipping through the channels. I was there on a Monday night doing laundry, and he landed on Ric Flair doing a promo on Nitro, and it was like, the clouds parted. I heard the angel choir. Like, I got it. Like they talk about back in the day that Rick could talk anyone into a building. He talked me into the sport of pro wrestling. And I was just hooked. And, back then, didn't know, this would have been like 98, 99. I didn't know that Raw and Nitro were on at the same time. So the next week, I just wanted to find wrestling and landed on Raw. And, right around then, they were, killing it, and just been a fan ever since.
Absolutely, definitely really couldn't have picked a better time frame as far as to become a fan, which is, famously known as the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. Who were some of the guys, besides, Rick, that's really stuck out to you?
Initially, I think Stone Cold was out injured, maybe, so it was The Rock. But then, I quickly discovered, especially like the tag team division at that time. So, the Hardys and Edge and Christian, and then a little bit later, the Dudleys, also Chris Jericho at that time, was, really coming into his own. And that's kind of how it was for me. Like at first it was like, Ric Flair and The Rock. But then, quickly it was those other guys where I wanted to see what they were doing next.
Absolutely. Now, for you, how did you, get really into art and drawing and all that? How did you really get into, what you're famously known for now?
I started when I was like 7 or 8. I got my first comic book, and I just knew I wanted to be someone that made something like this. I just knew from that age, and when I saw my first one, and started like redrawing like every panel in there, and for a long time was chasing the dragon that is trying to become a professional comic book artist. And like self-published my first comic when I was 17, and had a comic come out from Image, and did web comics and self-published stuff but always had to have a day job to support my art career, and to continue to evolve as an artist. I was experimenting with different things like painting and multimedia and different things that I could bring back to my core style as an artist. And so I had like paintings all over the apartment, and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, had a friend that was running a gallery, and the artist had flaked out at the last second. And my wife's friend was freaking out, like, what do I do? And she's like, oh, Rob has all these paintings. And I said, like, oh, no one wants to see that. They just want the comic book stuff. That's what's real, not realizing how wrong I was. But, went ahead and displayed some paintings there, and it actually did really well. And so I was doing the gallery stuff in addition to the comics. And then I, just kind of had to sit down with the man in the mirror one day and realize I wasn't ever going to be the guy drawing Batman or the X-Men, right? Like, I was always going to have a day job, and I was just going to be someone that did comics on the side, and that just wasn't what I wanted. And I knew the gallery stuff was doing well. So then I kind of examined how I could really stand out. And I realized that the subject matter I was doing at the time, which was kind of like jazz and pin-up type stuff, I was competing with everyone else that was already well established with that subject matter. So then I wanted to find something where I could really stand out. And I realized no one was doing fine art with professional wrestling. And I knew, there's a market for this. People would want this. And it's something that I love. And did a Kickstarter for a project I'm still working on, where I'm painting every world champion from all the major American promotions, going all the way back to George Hackenschmidt in 1905. It's called the Champions Collection. And I did a Kickstarter for that and raised $20,000 in a month. And, was able to quit my day job pretty quickly, get a studio, and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. That's incredibly awesome. I want to know, like, before we get really into the Hall of Fame weekend here, how did you first get, kind of in tune, like, connected there with WWE? Was that also as part of your, you coming to the Hall of Fame? Because you've been coming to the Hall of Fame weekend for, gosh, it almost feels like as long as I can remember, and I've been going here for 7 years now.
Yeah, I want to say 6 or 7 years. 6 years, I think. Yeah, 6 years sounds right. And it was actually through there where I met Jim Ross and Jerry Briscoe and stayed in touch with them. They liked the art that I did. That was the first year I went was when JPL was inducted.
Oh, okay.
And had done a new painting of him for that. And, just hit it off with all those guys, and they liked what I did and stayed in touch. And then SmackDown was coming through Kansas City, and I thought this would be a great way to do a fundraiser for Make-A-Wish. And I set up a gallery show showcasing the wrestling art, and then all the proceeds from that would go to Make-A-Wish. I was able to fully adopt a kid's wish, and reached out to Jim to see if he could pass my info along to the company just to help me co-promote this. And, that's all I was after, just help me signal boost what I'm doing. And they did, like Triple H tweeted out about it, which was awesome. We, again, was able to send a kid to Disneyland to meet Darth Maul, which was his wish. And it's just really cool. But Jim went the extra distance and actually called Triple H and said, this guy's ready. You need to work with him. And so the guy that brought The Rock and Stone Cold and John Cena and Brock Lesnar into WWE brought me into.
Wow, that's awesome. That is incredibly awesome. Kind of take a step back, since you did get introduced to WWE through the Hall of Fame weekend. How did you first get connected with the Hall of Fame weekend? Because the Hall of Fame weekend now has been going on for quite some time. So I was kind of like to know about how you got connected with them, because like we said, you've been coming for 6-7 years now, so it's been definitely quite some time.
That's a good story. I had emailed Kyle Klingman, the museum director, and introduced myself and my work and said, it'd be really cool to come exhibit what I'm doing and, to sell some prints. And he rejected me, which I give him a really hard time about every time we talk, like even yesterday. He thought I was just another one of those people coming in and trying to get myself over instead of the museum, And I had also, I had emailed it to the museum, and he responded first and said, "No, I don't want to do this." And then Mel, that also runs the museum, went to him and said, "No, Kyle, we want to work with this guy." And, called back and said, "Rob, I've had a great idea. You should come and exhibit yourself here."
I don't think Mel gets quite enough credit for what she does for the museum. Anytime you have a question about something regarding the weekend, she's always in the know. And I don't really feel like she probably gets the amount of credit that she deserves for all the help that she does there.
I have nothing bad to say about Mel. One, she talks some sense into Kyle. But two, she works so hard. She's so passionate about this. When I was there painting that mural we talked about a little bit earlier, which is the second biggest painting I've ever done. At the time, it was the biggest. And I was there for a whole week working on it, and she was so sick. She had gotten really, really sick. But it was the week leading up to Hall of Fame. And so she kept coming in every day, because she knew how important it was and how many people were depending on her being there, to make this event such a big deal. So yeah, she's amazing.
Now I want to ask Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but now at the museum there on display is a bunch of your art in its own section at the museum there in Waterloo now.
Yes. Yeah. I, going back to that Champions collection painting, collection I'm doing, I had asked Kyle, would you guys like these paintings added into your permanent collection of the people that they have honored? And he just loved the idea. Plus I do paintings of every entrant each year into the Hall of Fame. Going there for 6 years now, that's built up quite a bit. And then this year, starting next month, they're going to be doing some major renovations on the museum. So they had to take a lot of their exhibits down. And Kyle asked me if I'd be interested, since a lot of stuff will be down, if I'd be interested in doing a takeover of the museum with my art. So that now there's, for this week, over 100 paintings on display there.
That is awesome. Very awesome.
Yeah, it's very humbling. Very, very humbling.
Now, I want to talk a little bit too, Rob. I know you had mentioned this in a little Q&A section that you did with the museum website. Kind of talk a little bit about your painting and kind of what you got planned for this year.
Yeah, I'm doing, again, paintings of every entrant into the Hall of Fame. 2 of them I've already done. This is the second time that Dan Severn has been honored. So I've already done one of him, and I was able to work it out with Kyle that I don't have to do 2 of them. And then also I had already done a Champions Collection painting of Booker T. So it's the other 4 that I'm doing. Plus, during the Hall of Fame week, I'll be there at the museum every day, starting on Thursday, doing a painting of Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart. Larry the Axe comes every year. I've become kind of a de facto hinted cousin because I've really have hit it off with Larry and Irene, and also Joe that's with WWE. We're pals, So
who's now a tag team
it'd be
champion.
Cool to do that along with all the Hart family coming and Owen being honored. I thought this would be a perfect time to do this painting.
I want to ask that's going to be pretty cool. So definitely look out for that throughout the week of the Hall of Fame weekend. I want to ask you, Rob, outside of the stuff you're involved in with the weekend, is there a favorite part of the Hall of Fame weekend for you? Something you get to see each year, or something you take in during the festivities of the week?
Boy, that's tough, because I really think that they do an amazing job top to bottom. Depending on how deep your wrestling fandom is, there's something there for you. Whether it's the Impact Pro show on Friday night, which is always killer. For me, mostly, it is catching up with people at the museum. You never know who's going to be walking in when, and just having conversations, like Jerry Briscoe or J.J. Dillon or Charlie Thez. Charlie is just always so great to just talk to, and she's, like your cool aunt, that has stories to tell you. She's one of those. So that stuff. Also, when the honorees, just me personally, when they see their painting for the first time, that's a cool thing for me. Also, this year, for the first time, my wife, Katie, is going to be taking over the social media for the museum for that week. And I'm really excited for her. She's going to be covering everything and pushing it out on, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And she's been putting a lot of work into this. She does this professionally, but she's really stepping her stuff up. Like, we're at WWE events once or twice a month, and she had to sit down at the last time we were there with one of their digital producers and talking about equipment and techniques that they use for stuff. And she's going to be implementing that. And I think it's going to be a whole other side to this, that especially people that can't come in are really going to be able to experience for the first time.
And if you don't follow, your wife on social media, I would give it a recommend, because she's a blast to follow. I always get a kick out of it when I see her pop up on Natty Neidhart's Instagram every now and then when they're backstage goofing around. I'm like, oh, hey, there's Rob's wife. Because it's like, I've, going to the museum for several years. You've gotten acquainted with both you and your wife, too. So it's like, it's kind of fun from that aspect to see that friendship, too.
Oh, yeah. She and Natty have just really hit it off. I don't remember how it started, but they talk quite a bit. She's become really good pals with Charlotte, too. Like, they message back and forth quite a bit. I think with Natty, it's probably, that they're both crazy cat ladies, but it's cool. It's cool. And, like Katie got to be in the conga line on the Raw that was in Sioux Falls a couple weeks back. She was there to see that poor cheeseburger get thrown into the steps by the dastardly Mojo Rawley.
Well, that night too, there was a lot of that night too. There was a lot of Seth Rollins trainees that were there from what is known as the Black and Brave Academy, based out of the Quad Cities. So I know there was quite a few of his boys in that conga line too. So I'm sure, and it looked like your wife just had an absolute blast doing that.
Oh yeah, she had legit been training to be in the conga line. And it was totally last minute. Like all the rest of the extras were, putting their gear on and everything. And I had told the people that I work with on the merch team that Katie really wanted to do this, and they pulled John Cohn aside, who behind the scenes, books the extras, and said, "Hey, Katie wants to do this." And he just turned to her and he's like, "Katie, you want to do this?" She's like, "Oh my God, John, yes." And he's like, "All right, pick something out of the props there and let's go." And she went straight out to ringside for the meeting, and then she had her other dream come true, that she loves the WWE Glam Squad, and got a makeover from them before she went out. And I'm sure the other women that were in the conga line were like, who the F is this lady that she's getting that treatment?
Now, we don't want to take up a whole lot more of your time, but as you're making your way up to Waterloo here next week, I'm not sure which way you're going to go, but if you guys actually go the route where you're going to go through Marshalltown, there's a restaurant there called the Flying Elbow. It's a completely wrestling-themed restaurant that has, I believe it's gourmet hot dogs, Zach?
Yes, all kinds of gourmet hot dogs, and they got one of Rob's paintings on display there in the Flying Elbow as well.
Really?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I don't remember the exact print off the top of my head. I could go look at their Facebook page real quick, but I'm pretty sure it is one of your prints there on the back wall.
Well, if it's a good one, then it's one of mine.
But yeah, definitely if you're making the trek through Marshalltown up to Waterloo, that's definitely a hot spot that's kind of become well known there in the Marshalltown area, getting rave reviews from people. I mean, you can't go wrong with a wrestling themed restaurant, right?
No, that sounds awesome. I'll have to. I don't normally we just go straight up 35 and then hang a right straight in, but we might make that jog up that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much far out of your way it would be, so you'd have to do the old Google Maps or whichever to navigate your way through. So,
yeah, that'd be nice for stop for lunch.
But, well, Rob, we don't want to take too much more of your time. I just want to say we're incredibly excited to see you here at the museum here in a couple of weeks, and again, we can't wait to see your display of Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig as you're drawing that throughout the week, starting on Thursday there at the museum.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm really excited about it. And actually, while I'm working on that one, I'll be taking footage of it, and it'll be part of my Canvas to Canvas series for WWE, so I can, get that, everything that's happening with the museum further out to the WWE universe. And that's always cool to be able to do for them.
Very cool, very cool. So be on the lookout for that, Rob. If you don't follow Rob on the social media, Rob, where can everybody find you at?
On Facebook, it's Art of Rob Schamberger, and on Twitter and Instagram, it is at Rob Schamberger. Website is robschamberger.com. Also, you can go to www.shop.com. I've got a category on there with my prints and my shirts, and WWE auction. You can get prints that are signed by the superstars, and also on YouTube, Canvas to Canvas, every Sunday. It's the longest running original show in the history of WWE's YouTube channel. Not bragging or anything.
And of course not. Of course not. We wouldn't want that there. But again, guys, you can check out Rob and all his artwork there at the museum in Waterloo. Coming up here in just a couple, not even just a couple weeks. We're basically a week away at this point. Next week, July 26th, 27th, and 28th. So, Rob, we look forward to seeing you there next week, and we hope to see everybody else there as well. That is going to do it for this edition of the Mothership of Fame featuring Rob Schamberger.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows, visit electronicmediacollective.com.